Hello everyone. Not even looking and I knew you were there. So I did this video, but I did it on HistoryMarche. And I was told that this is the better video. So I'm doing this one. I only found this one. So we're going to go ahead and do it. And I'm going to eat some chocolate. And video. Or not. I mean, you don't have to play, it's fine. And video.
This video was suggested and sponsored by our Patreon supporter Fahad Al-Mandil. Supporting us on Patreon is the best way to propose and sponsor a new video. Both the Muslim Abbasid Caliphate and the Chinese Tang dynasty had been expanding their territories towards Central Asia, and their growth finally culminated at the Battle of Talas in 751. This conflict is relatively unknown, and its initial results changed very little in the region. However, the ripples created by this battle would have a number of implications in later centuries and influence the history of the world. The Tang dynasty came to power in China in 618 and started its expansion towards the west. By 630, the territory of the Eastern Turkic Khaganate was incorporated into the Tang domain, and by 657, the Western Turkic Khaganate was decisively defeated. Despite the rivalry with the Tibetan Empire to the south and the Second Turkic Khaganate to the north, by 715 the Tang Empire became the biggest Chinese state since the Han and gained vast influence in Central Asia, with many of the smaller states in the region becoming its vassal. To the west, the Muslim Caliphate managed to defeat both the Eastern Roman and the Sassanid empires in the middle of the 7th century, and established a vast empire of its own. A new Umayyad dynasty controlled territory from Spain to Central Asia, and from Arabia to the Caucasus. The Caliphate fought a number of local wars against the Turkic tribes of Central Asia, and by 715 controlled most of Transoxiana. The two great empires now shared control of the Silk Road. A conflict became inevitable. The details of the initial clashes are not clear, but we know that the first conflict occurred in the Ferghana Valley in 715. Despite Tibetan assistance, the Muslims were defeated. The same thing happened 2 years later, when the Chinese sent an army of Karluk mercenaries who beat the Arabs and Tibetans. Umayyad expansion was also curbed by revolts. A number of them failed, but finally, in 750, a rebellion led by As-Saffar defeated the Umayyads, and the new Abbasid dynasty came to power. It seems that the Chinese knew about the internal strife within the Caliphate and attempted to use it to subdue Central Asia. In 747, the local Chinese commander Gao Xianxi started a campaign against the city-state of Gilgit, which was allied to the Tibetan Empire. His victory in this campaign was swift. He was appointed the governor of the region and forced many petty kingdoms to become Tang vassals. The local states of Ferghana and Tashkent were feuding during that period. The former asked for the Chinese to help, and in the spring of 750, Gao attacked and captured Tashkent. The princes of Tashkent had no other choice but to call upon the Arabs. The local Muslim force led by Ziyad ibn Salih left Samarkand and started marching along the Talas River. Gao was slowly retreating to unite with his Karluk allies. The two armies finally met in the second half of 751, somewhere along the modern-day border of Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. The numbers of participants in the battle are recorded very differently across the Arabic and Chinese sources. The former claim that both sides had around 100,000 troops, while the latter insists there were about 200,000 Caliphate troops and 30,000 Tang warriors. However, the flow of battle suggests that there was parity between both sides. And as the battle took place on the edges of the two empires, hundreds of kilometers away from their respective centers with very little prior preparation, it is conceivable that both sides had between 30 and 50,000. Ziyad ibn Salih's army consisted of Arabic troops, with added contingents from the Tibetan Empire and the Turkic-Turkish Khaganate. Gao's forces were predominantly from China, with an infusion of local allied troops from Ferghana. The sources are not clear on whether the Karluk Turks were with Gao from the beginning of the battle or didn't join his army at all. The Chinese army was more infantry heavy, while their counterparts had an equal number of cavalry and infantry units. There are two central depictions of the battle, and we will present both of them. According to the first, Ziyad ibn Salih deployed his troops in a standard formation. A line of archers in front, spearmen behind them, heavy cavalry in the rear, with his guard and the light cavalry in reserve. Gao similarly had his crossbowmen and archers in front, with his spearmen in the second line, his guard and the Ferghana contingent in the third, with Karluk Turks on his extreme flanks. The first 3 days of the battle were nearly identical. The Chinese troops attacked across the front, and their archers got the better of their counterparts, dealing substantial damage to the enemy missile units. The Arab archers had to retreat behind their spearmen, and the infantry lines collided. As Gao's spearmen had better armour, they managed to push the foe back. The Muslim general attempted to alleviate the pressure on his infantry by sending his heavy cavalry to attack the lighter Karluk cavalry on the Chinese flanks. This attack failed to outflank Gao's units, but the Chinese general had to move his reserves into the fray. A similar sequence of events happened on the second and third days, but on the fourth day, the Karluk Turks betrayed the Chinese and attacked their infantry from the flanks, while the Arab army made a frontal charge. Gao's army collapsed. Between 10 and 20,000 Arabs died in this battle, while the Chinese probably lost close to 30,000. The second account of the battle is very different. The Chinese and Muslim forces did not dare to attack each other for 4 straight days, while a third army,
this is the one that I heard,
a smaller Karluk force, stayed beyond the Talas River, not joining either side. On the morning of the 5th day, the Karluks attacked the Chinese army from the left flank, and the Muslim forces entered the battle and attacked them from the front. It is not clear if the Karluks and Arabs planned this, but in any case, the Chinese army was broken, and only a few thousand of the troops close to Gao were able to escape. The Tang sent new armies to the area and contained Arabian expansion, but in 755 a great rebellion started in China, and the troops operating in Central Asia had to return home. The Abbasids also failed to establish stable control over these lands, and Turkic influence continued to rise. The Battle of Talas had a number of implications. The influence of Buddhism in the region was on the decline after it, and as China and India were no longer connected via land, differences between the two branches of Buddhism in these countries became more prominent throughout the centuries. Meanwhile, the Turks started adopting Islam, and that set up the Seljuk conquests in the Middle East, the Crusades, the fall of Byzantium, and the rise of the Ottoman Empire. And, most importantly of all, paper-making technology, which was previously kept secret by the Chinese states, was stolen by the Abbasids and found its way to the Middle East and Europe. Thank you for watching our documentary.
Wow. So that video created kind of the rise of the Ottoman Empire. That's interesting. And of course paper. Paper's the coolest thing. Don't mind my foot. That was my foot again, sorry. Alright. Narration officially Devon. I want that guy to narrate my life. Okay. So, yeah. That was good. The Ottoman, and it was actually, when I first saw it, I thought it was 19 minutes. Didn't realize it was so fast. But I'm going to end it here. Like and subscribe, and I'm going to burp. So have a good day, have a good night.